have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody, on a Thursday, August 21. Hey, good to see you today. Thank you for joining us here. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., a kind of a sleepy nation's capital, with Congress out of town, the president out of town, and all the lobbyists out of town. But we're here, keeping on top of the news of the day, bringing you the news of the day from all around the world, here in our nation's capital and around the country, and giving you a chance to sound off and tell us what you think about it. We're here with you on Free Speech TV, DirecTV Network. We're also here, of course, on worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And you can join the conversation anytime by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here's some of the things we'll be talking about this morning out in Ferguson, Missouri. Probably the best night yet last night. relative quiet, maybe because Eric Holder was on the ground, had a lot to do with it, talking to people and helping restore calm out there. Meanwhile, one police officer has finally been placed on administrative leave. A police officer who was videotaped telling a protester, "I'm going to effing kill you." And the grand jury heard the first testimony yesterday leading to a possible indictment on murder charges of Officer Darren Wilson, who shot and killed teenager Mychal Brown. President Obama yesterday strongly condemning the terrorist who beheaded American photojournalist James Foley, rejecting their demands to stop airstrikes in northern Iraq, and the Pentagon announcing that they did launched a daring rescue operation early this summer to try to rescue American hostages, including James Foley, from Syria. But when they arrived at the scene, the Delta forces found that the hostages had already been moved. They were no longer at that location. Lots of big news today, including George W. Bush and the Ice Bucket Challenge, all coming up here on this Thursday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A peaceful night in Ferguson, Missouri. Good news. This big step forward. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Thursday, August 21. So good to see you today, wherever you happen to be, in your office, on your way to work, at home, in the car, watching us on Free Speech TV, or listening on your local progressive talk radio station, listening on the TuneIn app or iHeartRadio, or watching us somewhere out in the planet around the globe on TawkrTV. We welcome you to the program, and get ready because there's a lot going on this morning and a lot to talk about. We are starting the day here in our nation's capital, as we do every day, kind of a sleepy Washington, D.C., this Thursday, August 21, with the president out of town, the Congress out of town, most of the lobbyists out of town. Nobody here but us chickens, but we got a lot to keep on top of, both news from Washington, such as it is, but a lot of news around the country and around the globe. Wherever it's happening, we're on top of it. Again, we'll tell you what's going, and you tell us what it means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here we go. Peter Rockburn and Lisa Murphy, team leaders. Good morning.
Bill, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Hey there.
Alicia Cruz there, the big wave, on the phones, ready to take your calls. You know, we encourage you just to keep her busy, otherwise she'll fall asleep at the switchboard there. So keep those calls coming in to Alicia at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, we're looking good. Thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, looking good on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. What's up?
We're here, man.
We're here, ready to go.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And it was nice to see things quiet down a little bit in Ferguson, Missouri yesterday.
That was very welcome. It's nice to wake up and not read about dozens and dozens and dozens of arrests and violence and tear gas and rubber bullets and all that stuff.
And the other good news out of Ferguson is that one of the police officers out there was finally suspended. This is a guy who was caught on video by a protester pointing the gun at the protester with, as Alicia Campbell, is that her last name?
Alexia.
Alexia Campbell.
Yeah.
There's too many Alicias around here.
I know.
Alexia Campbell, as she described, you know, that they pointing the guns at peaceful protesters with a laser on their chest. Laser. I mean, that's really, really unnecessary.
Pretty over the top
and frightening. Yeah. So this cop was pointing the gun at somebody's chest and saying, "I'm going to effing kill you." Peaceful protester. Yeah. He has been suspended. Thank God.
Thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, on the sports front, I know you're tired of hearing us brag about the
Too bad. I don't care if you're tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, because, damn it, we won 9 in a row last night.
That's right.
The 9th in a row. Yes, indeed. And again, it was heart attack Nats. At the bottom of the 9th inning, they're up to bat, and they got a man on third, and Anthony Rendon, who had been given the night off, right? So he didn't play at all, but they brought him in as a pinch hitter, and he did the job. Here it is on WJFK.
Here's the set and the pitch. Swing a ground ball. Base hit down the left field line past Pennington. Harper scores, and the Nationals have done it again. It's another walk-off win, the 4th in 5 games, and they're mobbing Anthony Rendon.
I'll tell you one thing.
The 4th in 5 games, they've had a walk-off win, and 9 games in a row. It's unbelievable.
You're getting your money's worth if you go to a Nationals game these days.
You are indeed.
You know, you're there. You are there for a full baseball game. There's no walking out early of any of those games.
Yeah.
Man.
The surprise last night is it did not go into extra innings.
Seriously.
Yeah, how about that? So lots of topics we're going to be talking about this morning. A new report on hunger. Pretty shocking, the level of hunger still and people that depend on food stamps in this country. We'll take a look at the latest out in Ferguson, Missouri, of course. We're going to also be checking in on the trial of former Virginia Governor Robert McDonnell down in Richmond. Boy, talk about a made-to-order for TV soap opera, this trial. And should the United States have paid ransom to free photojournalist Jim Foley? But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We will pick it up with baseball, except this time it's Little League Baseball. Last night saw Monet Davis.
Oh, yes.
Back on the mound, pitching for Philadelphia against Nevada, except did not have a very happy ending. Monet Davis, who we've talked about, 13 years old, the star of the Little League World Series, throwing 70-mile-per-hour fastballs, was not enough last night as her team from Philadelphia lost to Nevada 8-1.
Aww.
The Nevada team has outscored its opponents, by the way, 33-5.
Wow.
In the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
So they are a very dominant team. So that's the end of the line for Monet Davis. She does say, however, that she wants to go on. She wants to play basketball for UConn and then play in the WNBA. So this isn't even her sport.
Yeah. No, good for her. She's a great young athlete. Maybe the media made things a little tough for her. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure.
Cover Sports Illustrated.
Next to Wheaties box.
CBS News last night. Front page of the New York Times this morning. Enough's enough. Poor kid.
We now go to Japan, where it has been certified by the Guinness Book of World Records that Sakari Momoi is the oldest man alive. He is 111 years old. He lives in Japan. He is a former high school chemistry teacher. He says he has no secret to his longevity, but the place where he lives at a assisted living facility says he eats regular meals and he lives a punctual life. The other thing here is the oldest person in the world
sushi? Do you think he eats a lot of sushi?
Probably,
I bet.
Probably part of the diet. The oldest person in the world also lives in Japan. That is a woman, Misao Okawa. She is 116. So the Japanese, they're
probably the sushi.
The other two of them ought to get together.
Yeah, a young couple like that.
Yeah,
maybe they got a shot. Maybe. And I know we're going to be talking about the president and his response to the James Foley video. Twitter has had their own reaction to the violent video of James Foley being killed by ISIS terrorists. Twitter is suspending accounts of people who are sharing video or images of the incident. So even if it's something gruesome or something violent, from the video, even if you're sharing just a photo of it, Twitter will suspend your account. They're actually working with the White House on this. The White House put out word, said that, quote, officials from the Departments of State and Defense reached out to relevant social media sites to inform them of the video and requested that they take appropriate actions consistent with their stated usage policies, end quote. That is from the Washington Post.
I'm torn about that.
I am too.
Free speech.
Yeah, look, I think it's disgusting for anybody to share that video.
Agreed.
It was disgusting for the New York Post to put it on the cover yesterday, the still photo. But I don't think the government should be telling you what you can share and what you can't share on social media.
I agree with you. I think it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
It's
indeed.
not pretty. It's not something you want to share. It's not something you want to see. However,
unless it's pornography. Yeah, obviously that, and you might say this is a form of pornography, but
sure. Look, pornography's out there on Twitter. There are
that's really pervasive.
Just share pornography, and it's none of it.
I guess I meant child pornography.
Right? No, sure. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. We start with that subject. We were just talking about the horrific action on the part of ISIS, the ISIS terrorists, who, by the way, have you wouldn't think it's possible, have really surpassed Al-Qaeda in their cold-bloodedness and also in their power and their impact on the Arab world. They now hold more territory, a territory as big as the country of Jordan. They hold much more territory than Al-Qaeda ever did. Al-Qaeda really didn't hold territory. They just hold up, didn't hold territory. They hold up in other countries with their little training camps, kind of, or whatever. But ISIS is almost a country of its own, and we saw exactly who they are by the release of this video and the execution of photojournalist James Foley by beheading him. President Obama yesterday lashed out at them in the strongest possible terms from his vacation headquarters up in Martha's Vineyard, saying the entire world appalled by this.
Today, the entire world is appalled by the brutal murder of Jim Foley by the terrorist group ISIL.
And the president says he still uses ISIL as opposed to ISIS. Both are the same organization. The president said, rejecting the idea that these people are in any way faith-based.
No faith teaches people to massacre innocents. No just God would stand for what they did yesterday and what they do every single day.
And the president rejected the demands of ISIS that we cease any bombing of their military operations or else more Americans will be killed.
The United States of America will continue to do what we must do to protect our people. We will be vigilant and we will be relentless. When people harm Americans anywhere, we do what's necessary to see that justice is done, and we act against ISIL, standing alongside others.
The president also placed a phone call to the parents of Jim Foley, who held their own news conference. I thought a couple that showed incredible strength at a time of such sorrow for them. John and Diane Foley meeting reporters on the lawn of their house up in New Hampshire, and Jim Foley's dad, John Foley, saying their son, let him talk about what they think of their son.
We believe he was a martyr.
So,
a martyr for freedom.
Yeah, and they said they'd never been more proud of their son, who really, this was his mission, this was his cause in life, was to be there where the action was taking place anywhere in the world and to record it for all of us so we knew what was going on.
There was a great quote from James Foley that people were sharing on social media about how if he had the opportunity to take a desk job or to cover city council meetings in Waukesha County, he would take that, but it's because journalism meant so much to him. He would go and report on something.
Had to be where the action was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, a very interesting development yesterday, the Pentagon, there was some criticism that maybe we hadn't done enough to try to get these hostages out, and the media was looking into this, and the White House learned, and the Pentagon learned that the reporters might be breaking the story, and so the White House and the Pentagon yesterday reported on a, up till now, secret mission last summer to actually try to rescue a group of Americans, including Jim Foley, who were being held hostage in Syria, in northern Syria, at a refinery. Delta forces went in. They reached the refinery. Unfortunately, the mission was unsuccessful because the hostages had been moved before the Delta forces got there, but all the Delta forces got out safely as well. And the New York Times, finally, the New York Times reporting this morning, this is what I'd love to get your comments on, that while ISIS says, no, if you continue your airstrikes, we're going to kill Jim Foley, what they really were saying was, unless you give us ransom, unless you pay us ransom. They had demanded a multi-million-dollar ransom for James Foley, or they threatened to kill him. The United States refused to pay that ransom. Should we have done so? Other countries, there was one French captive who was with Jim Foley who got out because France had paid ISIS ransom money. Other countries have paid. The United Kingdom and the United States refused to pay ransom for our hostages. Should we pay that ransom to the ISIS group? 866-55-PRESS. You know what? I think it's a tough question because there are lives on the line, but I come down pretty clearly. Hell no, we should not pay the ransom, because I think it's pretty clear. You pay ransom for one photojournalist, what are they going to do? They're going to go out and seize two more.
Right.
I mean, that's exactly what they do. This is their MO.
It wouldn't end
the
situation. It would end that particular situation, but they would just keep going.
Yeah. And that's what these guys are very shrewd. This ISIS group, again, unlike Al-Qaeda, they are very shrewd businessmen. They've got this country. They've seized refineries, and they're selling the oil on the black market. They seized that dam. They're going to try to sell the water on the black market. They seize these hostages, and they demand multi-million-dollar ransom for all of them. They demand payments from local merchants to be able to do their business in these towns. They are a multi-gazillion-dollar operation. And the last thing we should be doing, in my opinion, is helping fuel that terrorist economy by paying ransom for our hostages. Should we have paid the multi-million-dollar ransom for James Foley, or should we now for, hey, there's another American, at least one that we know of, Steve Sotloff, who is a reporter for Time Magazine that they're holding. They threatened to kill him unless we pay ransom to them. Should we? 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it Thursday morning here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming,
And Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, no doubt the most powerful and the worst terrorist group that we have ever had to deal with or have seen. It's hard to believe that somebody could surpass Al-Qaeda after what they did, right? But you read about the way these people operate, rounding up people, enforcing Sharia law. Their stated goal, and they're halfway there, is to create this caliphate in part of Syria and part of Iraq, rounding up anybody who is not Muslim, the Christians there, the Yazidis, forcing them to convert, raping the women, enslaving the women, and forcing the men to convert to Islam. If they refuse, they execute them on the spot. I mean, this is the people that we're dealing with, and now they're demanding multi-million-dollar ransom for the hostages that they have taken. And if we don't pay it, we saw what happened to Jim Foley. Should we have paid it, or should we pay hostage to protect Steven Sotloff and save his life? Reporter for Time Magazine. Tough decision, but I say no way. It just leads to even more terrorism on their part. Jerry joining us from Chicago. Hi, Jerry. Welcome.
Hi. I don't think they could have paid. Two reasons. One, there's no guarantee they would have given the reporter back.
That's a good point.
You're supporting terrorism.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, it is plain and simple. And, I mean, I know that the law, the rule always is, we always say you never negotiate with terrorists. I wouldn't say never negotiate. I mean, look, Israel's talking to Hamas right now. We've been talking to Hamas. To try to bring peace to that region, you make a deal with them, fine. But paying them ransom for them not to behead an American citizen, to me, that is really making a pact and a deal with the devil. And as Jerry says, there's no guarantee they'd release the soldier anyhow. Knowing these guys, they'd probably still behead him.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Here we go. It's Thursday, August 21, 34 minutes after the hour, and we're talking about demands of ISIS. They demanded multi-million-dollar ransom. I'm not sure exactly how much. Multi-millions were told to save the life of Jim Foley. The United States refused to pay that. We saw what happened. And now they're demanding the same for reporter Steven Sotloff and other Americans who are held hostage. Americans that the president gave the order to try to save those hostages, and the Delta Force did its best attempt early this summer, we were informed yesterday. But when the Delta forces arrived at the site, they found the hostages had already been moved. Should we be in the business of paying ransom for hostages held anywhere on the planet? I say absolutely not. I think the best response, as you know, express some concerns about going back to war in Iraq, sending American aircraft in or drones. I mean, this is military operations, even if they're not boots on the ground. But the more I see about ISIS, the more I think. We're doing the right thing, and if I were President Obama, I'd respond by their threats.
Yeah.
by just sending in even more planes and more bombers.
Even as early as the beginning of this
Wipe
week,
them out.
I was thinking, I can't believe we're in a situation where we've got 1,000 troops back in Iraq, and we're talking about, are these bombing raids again? But I think I'm with you. I've sort of turned the corner and said this is a way more serious situation than I certainly thought it was a week ago. ISIS is clearly way more organized and dangerous than I think that.
These people make President Assad of Syria look like a good guy.
Right.
Sue is calling from Mineral, Virginia. Hey, Sue, welcome.
Hi. I agree with you 100%. We can't pay these criminals anything because criminals just repeat their behavior. But we've also got to stop calling them terrorists because it's a badge of honor for these people. They're pedophiles, perverts, and rapists.
Yeah, a lot of other words, and murderers, right?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, you can keep going. That's not a bad thought, Sue. I was surprised when you said criminals and not terrorists, but I hear what you're saying. I found it shocking too, and I'm sure you did, Sue, that the guy that I saw his nickname this morning, the executioner, Beetle. Beetle.
They call. Right? I guess there's a few of them. They call them the Beatles.
The Beatles, right? Because these are the Brits. There are like 500 British citizens that have gone to Syria, and about 100 Americans that have gone to Syria and joined up with these forces. I mean, what kind of people have these values, or a total lack of values, and a total lack of respect for humanity?
It's so disturbing. It's just the whole thing.
See this as a worthwhile cause. It's we just can't relate to these kind of people. But I think John Kerry said yesterday they just have to be wiped out. I could not agree more. Sue, thank you so much for the call. Thank you all for your calls on this subject. I just want to move on to one other thing here because there's so much in the news today, and this is something that it bugs me, and I'm talking about. Maybe it bugs you too, or maybe you've already done it. The Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, I really do.
There's no escaping it.
There is no escaping the Ice Bucket
You can't get away from the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Right. And I think you know what it is, right? I mean, somebody came up with this idea to try to help raise money for the campaign to find a cure for ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. And the gimmick, if you will, is that you videotape yourself, or you have somebody videotape you while somebody else throws a bucket of cold water on you. And you then, in the video, encourage people to send a check to the ALS Society, and hopefully you send your own check.
And you name names.
And then you challenge somebody else to do the same thing. Yeah. It has really taken off, especially in the sports world and now in the political world. And by the way, very effectively. And I've got to say, ALS is a horrible, horrible disease. There's no cure. Carol's father, my father-in-law, died of ALS.
Oh man!
And so I've seen it. What it can do firsthand, and heard other people who've been impacted, and heard many stories about it. So it's a great cause, and the Ice Bucket Challenge, I must admit, has been hugely successful so far. I mean, last year, the ALS Society raised a total of $64 million. In the last 23 days, I just checked, the last 23 days through the Ice Bucket Challenge, they've raised $31.5 million. So that's phenomenal, how this thing has taken off.
I'd say that's working.
It's working. At the same time, it's a little gimmicky, a little fatty, and fatty, not fat.
I follow you.
DDY.
DDY. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the celebrities are really getting into, like, Ethel Kennedy did it, and she challenged President Obama to do the same thing. Yesterday, probably the most prominent politician so far did the Ice Bucket Challenge himself up in Maine at his daddy's summer house. Here is former President George W. Bush.
I've been challenged by several Americans to bring awareness to the ALS campaign. Woody Johnson, our daughter Jenna Bush Hager, Coach Jim Harbaugh, and recently Rory McIlroy. to you all who
Rory.
challenged me, I do not think it's presidential for me to be splashed with ice water, so I'm simply going to write you a check.
Uh-oh, there's the water.
That check is for me. I don't want to ruin my hairstyle.
Lori got him.
Now it's my privilege to challenge my friend Bill Clinton to the ALS challenge. Yesterday was Bill's birthday, and my gift to Bill is a bucket of cold water.
So now W is challenging Bill Clinton to do the same thing. I don't know whether Clinton's going to take it up or not, but I'm just mixed about this. I'd love to know your reaction. What do you think of it? 866-55-PRESS. I haven't done the Ice Bucket Challenge. I've already, and every year we contribute money to ALS, given our family history, and I'll send them another check this year, gladly and willingly, and a bigger one than I did last year.
Without dumping a bucket of ice water on your head.
I don't feel a need to do the video and get it out there. Just send a check. Send a check. If you want to do the Ice Bucket Challenge, fine, but you don't have to. And if you don't do if you send a check but don't do the ice water thing, you're still okay.
That's okay too.
Huh?
That's okay too. Absolutely. I can't go on to Facebook or Twitter without seeing the latest celebrity that's done it, or friends of mine or acquaintances of mine from over the years who have done. I mean, the fact that we've gotten George W. Bush, Bill Gates
did it.
Oprah Winfrey has done it. I mean, everybody's doing it now. And so every fiber of what I know and what I like tells me this is silly and this is a fad and this is sort of everybody look at me.
Right.
And then I see the numbers that it's bringing in.
That's why I'm mixed about it, yeah.
I'm with you.
The results are absolutely phenomenal. And
this time
wonderful.
Last year, the ALS Association had raised $50,000 in the same period of time that it has raised, $16 million in the same period. So it's just kind of like you can't
31
compare.
and a half so far. 23
wow,
days. 31
it's jumping.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I'm also a little worried about this. That I just remember the last fad before this was the Save Our Girls campaign. It wasn't about sending money, but about getting that message out there. Whatever happened to that?
That's a good point.
And by the way, where are all those girls? They're still being held hostage. So, I guess my message is: send a check to the ALS Society to help find a cure for this horrific disease. And if you want to throw some ice water on yourself, fine. Fine. But who cares? When we come back, we're going to check in with The Nation magazine, Mychal Denzel Smith, who's been reporting on events in Ferguson, Missouri.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Should I get by?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything. Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb. Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. News out of Ferguson, Missouri. Eric Holder, Attorney General, there yesterday. The grand jury convened yesterday for the first time to consider possible charges against Officer Darren Wilson. One other police officer suspended for pointing his gun at a peaceful protester and saying, on camera, I'm going to effing kill you. And Captain Ron Johnson of the Missouri State Police, who has become the voice of sanity in Ferguson, Missouri, reporting that last night was the most peaceful night yet.
There were no Molotov cocktails tonight, no fires, no shootings. We did not seize a single handgun. There were no confrontations.
Michael Denzel Smith, reporter for The Nation, contributing writer for The Nation magazine, joins us on our newsline this morning. He's been covering this story here in Ferguson, Missouri. Hi, Michael. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, the question, I was impressed, the article that, most recent article I've seen that you submitted or on Ferguson, answering the question which I was wondering about is why the killing of Michael Brown has received such national attention and sparked these local protests, because there have been, as you have reported, many other unarmed black teenagers shot across this country. Why is this one captured so much attention?
Well, there are several reasons, but I think the one that sticks out for me and what I wrote about is that after Michael Brown was shot and killed, they left his body lying in the street uncovered for 4 hours. And that just, the disregard for his life, the disregard for any kind of decency and respect for the community. Not that people witnessed Michael Brown being shot, but then they had to live with the aftermath of it for hours upon hours, and it called to mind, and I'm not suggesting that it's the same thing exactly, but it called to mind the era of lynching where black bodies were hung from trees in the communities and made public display and spectacle, and the type of psychic terror that imposes on a community, and the message that it sends to people living there that this is your fate, this is what we will do to you if you step out of line. And what does step out of line mean? It's just following the directives of white people anywhere, and so that's what it feels like. And I think that for a generation that didn't experience lynching, this is the closest that anyone has come to seeing the products of that, and that the combination of the daily harassment, that's happened to black people, particularly in Ferguson, and then this is just enough to get the temperature to the boiling point.
What excuse did the police give for leaving his body lying there that long?
The police haven't explained that.
That is the thing. Yeah, just the lack of communication down in Missouri.
That's another part of it. Is just the police have not been forthcoming with a lot of information with regards to the shooting. And then when they've been pushed to to release information, most of it has had to do with disparaging Mychal Brown, or painting a narrative, or spinning this narrative as if Mychal Brown was the aggressor in this situation. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Sure, which is why
he's being accused.
Which is why they released that video, which shows him pushing the shop owner there in the convenience store, right? I mean,
right. He's being accused of essentially shoplifting, and then having an altercation with the convenience store owner, who never called the police, and then saying that the genesis of this was a physical altercation with the officer Darren Wilson, and that Mychal Brown reached for his gun. But if the worst that Mychal Brown has done is steal some cigars from a convenience store and then jaywalked, I don't know how this then escalates to him grabbing a police officer's gun. This just doesn't really add up, particularly if you're listening to Dorian Johnson's version of the story, and then you listen to the way that Mychal Brown is described by multiple witnesses of having his hands in the air when at the time he was shot. None of these things seem to add up. I mean, there's also, the release of the toxicology report that says that Mychal Brown had marijuana in his system, as if that somehow turned him into this violent thug that was, willing to put his life on the line to get his officers done. I mean, that's the information that we've been getting, and that's what's been upsetting for people.
I read yesterday that Police Chief Tom Jackson said that he's now, in light of what happened to Mychal Brown, he's going to make race relations a top priority for the Ferguson Police Department. It's a little late for that, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's good that you're thinking about it now, but I have a problem with this term race relations. Like what we're talking about is not race relations, not whether or not people are getting along. It's the fact that police harassment of black people is an everyday occurrence, and it is racism. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the suspicion, the inherent suspicion of black people as criminal and as a threat, and then being treated as such. Like that's why we're talking about the increased militarization of the police. Like it's being justified because you don't see these people, this community, as people or as a community. They're being viewed as enemy combatants. And that's why you get that type of budget to get armored vehicles and assault rifles and tear gas and rubber bullets there, and use that on this community, and no one see any problem with it, because these are people not being viewed as human beings.
Got to jump in because we're out of time, but excellent reporting on this, and thanks so much for joining us this morning. Mychal Denzel Smith from The Nation magazine, thenation.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, a lot coming up in the next hour. We're going to take a look at the latest report on hunger in the United States and find out what's going on with that trial of Robert McDonald, former governor of Virginia, down in Richmond.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody, on a Thursday, August 21. Hey, good to see you today. Thank you for joining us here. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., a kind of a sleepy nation's capital, with Congress out of town, the president out of town, and all the lobbyists out of town. But we're here, keeping on top of the news of the day, bringing you the news of the day from all around the world, here in our nation's capital and around the country, and giving you a chance to sound off and tell us what you think about it. We're here with you on Free Speech TV, DirecTV Network. We're also here, of course, on worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And you can join the conversation anytime by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here's some of the things we'll be talking about this morning out in Ferguson, Missouri. Probably the best night yet last night. Relative quiet, maybe because Eric Holder was on the ground, had a lot to do with it, talking to people and helping restore calm out there. Meanwhile, One police officer has finally been placed on administrative leave. A police officer was videotaped telling a protester, "I'm going to effing kill you." And the grand jury heard the first testimony yesterday leading to a possible indictment on murder charges of Officer Darren Wilson, who shot and killed teenager Mychal Brown. President Obama yesterday strongly condemning the terrorist who beheaded American photojournalist James Foley, rejecting their demands to stop airstrikes in northern Iraq, and the Pentagon announcing that they launched a daring rescue operation early this summer to try to rescue American hostages, including James Foley, from Syria. But when they arrived at the scene, the Delta forces found that the hostages had already been moved. They were no longer at that location. Lots of big news today, including George W. Bush and the Ice Bucket Challenge, all coming up here on this Thursday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
No Molotov cocktails, no gunfire, no arrests last night in Ferguson, Missouri. That's progress. Hey, hello everybody. And now real progress when we see some charges filed against police officer Darren Wilson, of course. Good to see you today, August 21, on a Thursday, The Bill Press Show. We are coming to you from our nation's capital, booming out to you across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station, on the two apps, the TuneIn app and iHeartRadio. And also coming to you live on Free Speech TV, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday. Pardon me, whether you are in the car, already at work, on your way to work, at home, kicking back, on the beach, wherever. We are here to, our job to bring you up to date on all the news of the day, and your job to tell us what it all means to you. You know how to do so. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Say good morning to all of you and to the team this morning, Peter and Peter Ogburn.
Hi, Bill.
Lisa Murphy.
Hey,
hello,
good morning.
Hello.
Happy Thursday.
Woohoo.
Sorry, little frog in my throat. You-hoo, meaning closer to Friday, right?
That's right. That's right.
Alicia Cruz is here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding rounding out the team to keep us looking good on the video cam. Given what he's got to work with, he does a pretty good job.
Pretty good job. The best in the business.
Yeah. President Obama, boy, his vacation has been star-struck from the beginning with so much bad news hitting him all at one time, and the horrific news of the beheading of an American photojournalist, Jim Foley. President Obama taking time out yesterday up in Martha's Vineyard to condemn that killing and to vow that he will reject any demands from ISIS that we cease our attempts to beat them back in northern Iraq and reject any demands on their part that we pay ransom either to have protected Jim Foley or any other American hostages. The president said, we're more determined than ever.
The United States of America will continue to do what we must do to protect our people. We will be vigilant and we will be relentless. When people harm Americans anywhere, we do what's necessary to see that justice is done, and we act against ISIL, standing alongside others.
A very determined, a very angry President Obama yesterday. Coming up a little later this hour, we're going to check into Richmond, Virginia on the latest in the the soap opera trial of former Governor Robert McDonnell, who took the stand and pointed the finger at his wife and said it's her fault. What a marriage this is. Yes, we are also going to be taking a look at some shocking figures about hunger in America, and taking a look at the latest from Ferguson, Missouri. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Chris Christie got into a battle with the boss. Well, not exactly. Chris Christie showed up to an event earlier this week, and he plays Bruce Springsteen music when he shows up. Because, you know, the whole New Jersey connection.
But he's been to many concerts,
He's
too.
a big fan of Springsteen.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
Well,
right.
Someone in the crowd identified herself as a Springsteen fan and said, you shouldn't be playing that because you don't share the same views. Bruce Springsteen is a fairly progressive performer.
Right.
And Christie shouted back and said, no, Bruce never said I couldn't play his music. He allowed me to play this music. He's okay with me playing his music.
Okay.
So it's more about the New Jersey thing than the political thing with those two, I guess.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen bringing everyone together.
That's right. Yeah, apparently so. You know, the Emmy Awards are coming up. They're Monday of next week, August 25th. Yeah, they're creeping up. One person that you wouldn't expect to normally see at the Emmys is Billy Crystal. He is not hosting, but it was confirmed that he is going to come out on the Emmys and perform a special tribute to Robin Williams. The two never did a lot of movies together. They really only did one movie in 1997, Father's Day, but they did perform together a lot and showed up at events together. They certainly ran in the same circle. So
right, and they were very close.
And very close, yes.
That's very cool.
So Billy Crystal will be performing at the Emmys a special tribute to Robin Williams. And Bon Appetit magazine has named its best new restaurant in America.
All right. It's in Washington, D.C.
In fact, it's right down the street. Rose's Luxury, right in our neighborhood, has been named the best new restaurant in the country.
No
Andrew
kidding.
Knowlton, the editor for Bon Appetit, took a look at, he originally named 50 restaurants that were the best in the country. Then he narrowed it down to 10, and at the top of the list, the best restaurant, Rose's Luxury here in Washington, D.C.
I know you've been there several times. I have yet to get in. I have tried, and it's a small restaurant, and they don't take reservations.
They don't take reservations.
Yeah. And,
which is one of the things that
and
Bon
everybody
Appetit
says the
talks
best time, if you want to get in, you just show up at 4:30 when they open the doors, and you have a chance of getting a table. Usually there's a line even at that time.
There's usually a line.
I am not going to go stand in line at a restaurant at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Here's the
Damn it.
the way that they do the whole no reservations thing is you show up and then you give them your cell phone number.
Right.
And then they'll text you when it's ready. So you could even go home.
You're in the neighborhood.
Given restaurants, 6 months from now, it's going to be old hat. Then I'll go when nobody else cares about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try to get them in studio. That'll be fun.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Right, bring it on. Hey, let's take the latest here. To take a look at the latest from Ferguson, Missouri. Last night, the best night yet in terms of continued protest, but very, very little, if any, violence. Captain Ron Johnson, the voice of sanity from Ferguson, Missouri, head of the Missouri, or dispatched by the Missouri State Police to handle this situation, gives the good report.
There were no Molotov cocktails tonight, no fires, no shootings. We did not seize a single handgun. There were no confrontations.
No confrontations, no arrests, so far as we know. And the big man on the scene yesterday, of course, was Attorney General Eric Holder. He and Captain Johnson actually met up at a place called, was it Duke's Place?
Duke's Place, yeah.
Duke's Place. And they were, Ron Johnson was glad to see the Attorney General on the scene.
There's nothing that can replace actually coming to the office that's handling the matter and being able to look in the face the people who are, I think at this point, very ably handling this investigation.
Attorney General Eric Holder, of course, saying why it was important for him to be there. And the Attorney General also pointed out that there is a federal investigation underway in addition to the local investigation by local law enforcement authorities into the shooting of unarmed teenager Mychal Brown, but the Attorney General pointing out that what the feds are looking into is a different set of issues.
We're looking for violations of federal criminal civil rights statutes, which is different from what the local investigation is.
More and more information coming out, by the way, about Ferguson, Missouri. And the more we hear about Ferguson, Missouri, the less we should be surprised, I guess, at what happened, that an unarmed black teenager should, in effect, be shot and killed for jaywalking, which and maybe an attempted assault on a police officer as well. Just to give you some of the figures that have come out about Ferguson, Missouri, Tom Jackson, the police chief, has said, in fact, it was August 13, so a week ago, the police chief said that since the shooting of Mychal Brown, he is going to make race relations a top priority for the Ferguson Police Department. Well, it's about time. Just take a look at the numbers from Ferguson, Missouri. It's a town suburb of St. Louis, about 22,000 people. It is 68% African American. 68%. But the mayor is white. 5 out of 6 members of the city council are white. 6 out of 7 members of the Ferguson school board are white. The police chief is white. And most significantly, perhaps, out of 50 police officers on the Ferguson police force, only 3 of them, or 6%, are black. So 68% black population, 6% on the police force.
That's fuzzy math, I believe is the phrase.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, it certainly helps explain why African Americans living in Ferguson, Missouri say for years they have felt targeted. For years they have been targeted by the police department, and for years they have felt that they are, you know, not respected, if you will, as citizens of that community, but considered as evildoers or bad doers. And by the way, they're not just making this up. A report from the Missouri Attorney General's office, okay? This is the Missouri Attorney General's office. This is not the ACLU or some liberal organization. Showed that last year, Ferguson police pulled over 4,632 black drivers, but only 686 white drivers. And even when you factor in the disparity in population between African Americans and whites, that means, according to the Missouri Attorney General's office, they did the math, that in Ferguson, Missouri, black drivers are 37% more likely to be stopped and twice as likely to be searched and arrested. Now, in that environment, you know, how are the cops going to react?
Right.
They're going to react like that one cop who's been suspended, who pointed the gun at a peaceful protester, the laser beam on his chest, and said, "I'm going to effing kill you," or respond like a Darren Wilson, who pulls out his gun and fires 6 times at a young black man, unarmed, who, according to at least two eyewitnesses, had his hands in the air and saying, "Don't shoot." It's almost, maybe we should just be surprised this didn't happen earlier.
You know what I think I'm genuinely was surprised about is how hesitant they are to move this forward. Like we were talking to Michael Smith in the last hour, how they just let Michael Brown sit lying dead on the ground.
Lie uncovered for at least 4 hours in the middle of the roadway. Yeah.
And you put this whole thing together of these white cops who, you know, there's already a racial issue in Ferguson, and this is just sort of a boiling point. You understand why there's so much frustration in Ferguson.
And by the way,
why people
the mayor of Ferguson says there is no problem with race relations in Ferguson. No problem. This has nothing to do with race. Oh, yes, it does. Former governor of Virginia, Robert McDonnell, took the witness stand yesterday in his corruption trial down in Richmond. Jeff Schapiro from the Richmond Times-Dispatch will bring us the latest in the next segment.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
24 minutes after the hour here on Thursday, August 21. Well, wherever you are in this great land of ours, I'm sure you have at least heard a little bit about the trial in Richmond, Virginia. Former Governor Robert McDonnell charged with corruption, basically doing special favors, accepting gifts in return for special favors for a Virginia businessman, the head of Star Scientific. And yesterday, the former governor himself took the stand in his defense. Jeff Schapiro has been in the courtroom every day of this trial for the Richmond Times-Dispatch and joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Jeff. This is real soap opera down there in Richmond, huh?
Good morning, Mr. Press. This is not exactly family entertainment. It is certainly high stakes, particularly for Governor McDonnell to testify in his own defense. At various points in his career, Bob McDonnell has found himself in a very tight corner and has relied on his considerable poise, charm, and advanced interpersonal skills to escape such difficulty. So this is clearly a true test. He testified for about 2 hours yesterday, initially somewhat nervous, but in short order, the old poise emerged. And while he talked about a number of sensitive subjects and will continue his testimony today, this dramatic turn, while not unexpected, nonetheless does not divert the government's attention from the larger issue of alleged corruption. And you can imagine the interest the prosecutors have in directly questioning the governor on these matters, on this seemingly transactional relationship he and his administration had with Johnny Williams and the former Star Scientific to promote the company's disputed dietary product, Natablock.
Now, the governor, as I understand it, the governor's basically blames his wife for this, right? And that he could not really be part of that conspiracy with his wife because he and his wife didn't get along or were estranged at the time.
Yes, one of the points that has been made over 19 days by the defense, directly and indirectly, is that Mrs. McDonald, because of the stresses of being First Lady, that she was ill-equipped, if not absolutely unequipped intellectually and emotionally for this lofty assignment, would be absolutely incapable of engaging in a conspiracy with her husband. The government has made the point and will, again, clearly when it has a chance to question the governor directly, that if this was indeed the case, how does he explain a number of steps that he took to conceal the beneficence of Johnny Williams that was heaped on himself, on him, on his wife, and their family. The government's estimate is that at least $177,000 in cash, loans, and some very gaudy gifts were given to the governor and his family.
I'm curious, are the, just about a half a minute here left, but are the governor and his wife still together as a couple?
The former First Lady's lawyers say she's living at the family's house in western Henrico. That's one of the Richmond suburbs. The governor is not saying exactly where he's spending his evenings.
Boy, I got to tell you,
doesn't sound good.
Be pretty tense in that household, it seems to me. I don't know, but it is just fascinating to see how this turns. And I wish we had time. Maybe we can talk to you again soon to talk about Virginia law, which is pretty loose when it comes to the opportunity to accept these gifts as well. Jeff, good work, good reporting, and thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Jeff Schapiro with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. We got to follow this trial. This is good stuff.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts, but what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, Thursday, August 21, The Bill Press Show live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their colorful and articulate and very powerful international president, Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. Check out their good work at their website at usw.org. With all the important, particularly news from the Arab world and from Iraq and Afghanistan these days. One subject that has not gotten a lot of attention but got my attention is a recent report, a couple of reports on the level of hunger in America today, which I found absolutely shocking and we're not talking enough about. We wanted to find out more about it, so we have invited Jillien Meier, who's a senior manager the group called No Kid Hungry, in the studio this morning to join us. Jillien, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So you look at, you call it food insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
How many Americans are in that category?
So
how many Americans suffer hunger? It's every day.
Yeah, so food insecurity is this term we use to say how many people in this country don't have enough access to regular food that they need to live healthy lifestyles. And so right at this moment, we have about 49 million Americans in this country suffering from food insecurity. About 16 million of those are children. So 20% of our children are food insecure.
That's like, is that, I've seen the number 1 out of 7 Americans?
Yep, that's it.
Wow. And 16 million children.
So not having regular access to food.
So
it's horrifying.
It is. It is. I mean, just to think of that in this country. So what do people do? I mean, with food insecure, I mean, do they go to a food bank? They got food stamps or just don't eat? 3 meals a day or what?
You've sort of hit the nail on the head with all of those statements. So what we see is families have a number of strategies they use to make ends meet. We see them making trade-offs between medicine and food, housing and food, heating and food. We see people applying for food stamps. We have a number of child nutrition programs like school breakfast, after-school meals, summer meals that families can access if they're low income to get free meals for their kids. We see growing numbers of families at food banks. We know from a recent report from Feeding America, which is a national nonprofit that oversees a network of food banks across the country, that they can't keep up with demand. They have to turn families away because they have run out of food and they can't give families what they need.
And I know from the Feeding America report, another number that startled me is that the number of military families. These are people, I mean, who are on active duty, right? Or they're families of people on active duty.
Members of our military serving our country. I mean, I think this is the first time we've ever heard this statistic, at least at Share Our Strength. I think this is the first time Feeding America has asked it of their clients. And so what we know is there's about 20% of clients that go to food banks that have at least one member of the military in their family.
Whoa. Whoa.
That was a kick in the gut.
Yeah.
When we talked about that was a holy crap moment of how bad the situation is.
Yeah, I mean, they're in uniform, they're defending our country, and their families are forced to go to a shelter or a food assistance program, get food stamps. I mean, I knew the pay in the military was not great, but I didn't know it was that bad.
Well, I think what you need to think about is really the price of food in this country. You know, price of food is increasing, the price of housing is increasing. We have, price of medicine is increasing. We have all of these factors that
impact. So it all
impact.
ties together, right?
Exactly. So it's, it's not just military families, it's families with kids, it's families that have adults with disabilities. We know a third of the families that go to food banks have an adult with a disability in their family. These are working people, and they can't make ends meet with what they have.
So has the situation gotten worse in this country, do you know? Or has this always been this bad?
It ebbs and flows. We know food insecurity is cyclical and it's periodic. So, the average family is food insecure for about 7 months out of the year. And it's not necessarily every day. They can have good weeks, they can have bad weeks. But, we're looking at over the stretch of a year, are you getting what you need? And so it's gotten better as we've moved further away from the economic downturn. It was 1 in 6 Americans are food insecure. Now we're at 1 in 7, which not necessarily something to cheer.
Right? Yeah.
From our perspective, we're making strides in the anti-hunger community against this battle. We think we are making strides towards ending, especially childhood hunger, which is what we focus on at Share Our Strength. But people have forgotten about the economic downturn, especially in big cities where, we weren't as hit as hard. We've forgotten. It seems like 2008, that was a really long time ago. But we know 49 million Americans are still struggling. They haven't made it out into the recovery like so many of us have.
Is junk food part of the answer? I mean, should not be, but is it part of it?
Yeah, and I think what we saw in the Feeding America report is that families are choosing unhealthy food because it's cheaper. And, it's one of the trade-offs they're making. They know it's unhealthy. They don't need to be told they're not making good choices. But when you can't afford anything else, it's what you do to feed your kids. You can't let your kids go to bed hungry at night.
Mm-hmm. So what's the answer? Is it more money for federal programs? I mean, rather than cutting food stamps, putting more money into food stamps? Or is it, churches and local communities doing more? Or, again, all of the above?
I think you've hit it again. I think it's a great question. I think if you ask anyone sort of from my world, the anti-hunger world, they would say all of the things you just mentioned. We have this safety net, and we just need to improve access to it. We have these fantastic federal nutrition programs run by the USDA. And they're entitlement programs, so they're designed to expand as need expands. But families can't always access them. It's really hard on the local level to get through the administrative hurdles and the red tape sometimes. And a lot of families we know are embarrassed to ask for help. I think the pride and the stigma attached to these programs is immense. And so that's why at Share Our Strength we focus on reducing that stigma. So for example, school breakfast, I'm sure you remember the poor kids went down to the cafeteria before school school started to get breakfast.
Right.
So we want to take breakfast out of the cafeteria and put it in the classroom so all kids are eating together. And it's the poor kids, the not so poor kids, because we know there's a lot of those kids in that area that are not quite poor enough to get free meals. So everyone eats together as a community, and they socialize with their peers, and the teachers, teach them something in that time period, help them with their homework. So we really want to reduce that stigma so families feel more comfortable getting help that they need.
I'm very curious about that program because yesterday was the first day of first grade for my granddaughter, Prairie.
Oh, gosh.
And I know the first thing that she did was had breakfast. Now, fortunately, their parents, there's no food insecurity in that family. I mean, they're able to provide meals for their kids and for themselves, and so she can have a healthy breakfast at home. But when she goes to school, and it was the same in preschool, everybody had breakfast.
Exactly.
They had breakfast for everybody there, so that those who couldn't afford to feed their kids at home, those kids don't feel different or whatever.
Exactly. And we think it's
now,
good for them.
Is that happening around the country in public schools?
Yeah, so that's something that we're promoting. It's something a lot of our organizations, our anti-hunger friends promote. It's something the USDA promotes. So about 21 million kids get a free or reduced price school lunch every day, and about half of those kids are participating in school breakfast. So we think that by taking it out of the cafeteria, by reducing stigma, by making it a social setting that kids want to be in, it's going to reduce stigma further, and it's going to increase participation. And we're seeing those numbers rise. We're seeing them rise across the country where they're doing this district-wide and statewide. A lot of states, Colorado last year passed legislation that mandated breakfast after the bell in schools that had really high needs. So if your school had 80% or more of kids that need a free or reduced price lunch, you have to do a breakfast after the bell model. And we're seeing participation skyrocket as a result of this. Kids want to eat together. They like the meals that they're getting. And we're making it into a movement across the country.
Such a smart program. Like it really just like on its face makes so much sense. It's such good sense.
So that's a way of getting kids at least 2 meals a day, maybe, huh?
Exactly. And we at Share Strength want to get it to 3 meals a day. We think it's possible. The USDA has this fabulous program called the After School Meals Program, and we think we could get kids 3 meals a day through
All right, but you said something that these programs are supposed to expand as the economy shrinks, right? So more people need help, then there are more people in this program, and once that the economy improves, then now that's exactly the way food stamps work. So what do you say to the members of Congress who the only debate this year about food stamps was how much were they going to cut it? There was no talk about putting more resources into the program.
I think it's hard. I personally don't envy a politician out there. I think they're being forced to make really tough decisions. I don't always agree with decisions that are made, but they're making tough decisions. I think we're seeing a lot of bipartisan
wrong
support.
Decisions. I'm afraid in too many cases.
Yeah, and I think we could talk food stamps. We could talk about so many factors that are impacting food insecurity. But we are starting to see bipartisan support in Congress for this. There are several pieces of legislation around the summer meals program that have received support in both houses from both sides of the aisle, which is really exciting for us. And we think that bringing people together to actually visit these programs. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to see a summer meal site or a breakfast in the classroom site. I would love to set one up for you if you're interested. It's a great experience to see these kids so excited and happy.
I haven't, but I'd love to. Yeah.
But we're getting Republicans out to these sites. We're getting Democrats out to these sites because they know it's their constituents that are suffering. And especially, no one can say to a hungry kid that's coming to get a free school breakfast, sorry, you should work harder.
Right. Yeah, that's
you should get a job.
Go get a job.
Okay.
Right.
I want to go with Mitch McConnell. Set it up for the two of us. Jillien Meyer's here from No Kid Hungry. We're talking about hunger in America. I'm sure a lot of you know people who suffer from food insecurity, their families not being able to provide for their families. Maybe some of you are in that category. You want to join the conversation? We welcome your calls at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Back to Ferguson, Missouri at the in the next hour with Joel Anderson from Buzzfeed, who is on the ground reporting from Ferguson. Right now we're talking hunger in America with Jillien Meier, who's a senior manager with No Kid Hungry, about some of the startling statistics that we've seen in a couple of recent reports on the level of hunger in America and the number of families. 20%, I've seen even 25% of those families, depending on food banks, are military families in this country. And overall, 1 out of 7 Americans suffer from some form of food insecurity.
That's right.
So, Jillien, you mentioned something before the break. Peter, I'm sorry.
Just a quick thing, because we're on Twitter at BP Show. We're taking comments all throughout the program. Political Wizard weighs in and says, my kids went to a school where everyone had breakfast. I saved time by not having to make it for them. So it was a win-win situation there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, so if your family doesn't need these, doesn't need the free meal,
the assistance, right?
You are essentially, the participation. As soon as participation raises, the way it works is that schools can get more money from the USDA. So as participation raises, the money they're given from the USDA increases. So we want to get all kids eating this healthy meal, and we know the meals we're giving them are healthy, and so we think that all kids should be able to eat together in the morning, whether it's in the classroom, which we think is sort of the best model, or it's through some sort of other means.
You mentioned a phrase that I haven't heard before, summer meals program. So this is for kids like in the summer when they're not in school.
Exactly.
They can still get free meals?
Yep. So we know that 21 million kids rely on a free or reduced price school lunch. And in the summer months, they don't have access to that food. So this program is designed to replicate the school lunch program. So kids can come to an eligible site in low-income communities.
Does that mean a school?
It could be a school, it could be a Parks and Rec site, it could be a YMCA, it could be a church. We see a lot of the faith-based communities getting involved in these programs to help their members. And they can get up to 2 meals a day through these sites. So if the program is open from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., kids can come and they can get a breakfast, they can get a lunch, and they can play games and be with their friends. It's just a great opportunity for them to get out and socialize and get the healthy meals they need.
So this program is underway right now, right?
Yep.
Nationwide?
Correct.
And how many kids are in it?
Unfortunately, participation is really low. So, 21 million kids get free reduced price lunch. 3.4 million, 15% of eligible kids are getting a summer meal. 15%.
Why that? Because they're all at the Hamptons or something?
I assume so.
Yeah, that must be it, right? They're Rehoboth at the Hamptons.
Outer Banks, perhaps.
Outer Banks, yeah, right.
Awareness is really low. This is not a popular program that people, know about and wait for. Just we're having trouble getting the word out. So that's a big part of what Share Our Strength does, is trying to build awareness. But the other piece is access. So, during the school year, you get on a school bus and it takes you where you need to go to get that meal.
Right.
In the summer months, the families are responsible to get their
kids there, huh?
And you think about rural areas in Virginia, for example, or Ohio, where your house could be located 10 miles from your school site. What is a kid going to jump on his bike and go?
Yeah, right.
What's so striking about this to me is, you think, you say hunger and you think Africa, you think Bangladesh, right? You think whatever. I mean, this is the United States of America, 2014. Yep. 1 out of 7 Americans depending on some kind of food assistance or needing some kind of food assistance, right?
Correct.
Unbelievable.
And it's not, we don't lack the food here. I think we all know we've got plenty of food. We don't lack the programming. We don't lack the skills to do it. We know how to, run a distribution network.
Right.
We need to improve the programs we currently have. We don't need to create a new program. We don't need a new bureaucracy. We need to use what we already have, make it a little bit better, raise awareness. I think that's one of the biggest pieces, and that's why we were thrilled to be asked to come on your show today, is because we know that there are people listening and watching that really could benefit from these programs, and we want them to know that there's help out there. They don't need to be ashamed. I volunteered at food banks before. I've done outreach at food banks before, and it's people that look exactly like you and me. They're coming in on their lunch break from work because that's the only time they have to pick up their food. They're working. They're struggling. They've got their kids in tow when they come. They look just like us. We just need to work a little harder to improve what we already have set up, and we need to raise awareness.
And make sure that you've got the resources necessary to keep those programs going. And you can find out more, because our time is up, but you find out more about the good work of No Kid Hungry at nokidhungry.org.
Correct.
Right? And even maybe find out in your local community how you can pitch in and help out as well. You're doing the Lord's work, Jillian. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming in. And I'll be back with, I'll tell you what the president is up to today. Can you spell golf?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Almost 2 hours down, and we are just getting warmed up here on a Thursday morning. Good to have you with us. Hate to lose you if you're on Free Speech TV. Hate to lose you for this third hour. But don't forget, you've always got the option. We encourage you to switch over to our video stream worldwide at TawkrTV, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're going to go out to Ferguson, Missouri, and talk to one of the reporters on the ground in Ferguson, Charles Ellison from The Root will be here in studio with us. Lots more for you and for us in hour number 3 on TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, President Obama, nothing really complicated about his schedule today. He's on vacation in Martha's Vineyard. There are no public events scheduled. We wouldn't be surprised to see him head out to the golf course again for his what would be his 8th game of golf while he's been on the Vineyard. And in our next hour, more importantly perhaps, Charles Ellison from The Root will be here to bring us up to date on Ferguson. We'll also jump out to Ferguson and talk with Joel Anderson, Buzzfeed reporter on the ground. Hour number 3 coming up, so stay on board.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's 2, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We are still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
No Molotov cocktails, no gunfire, no arrests last night in Ferguson, Missouri. What a change. Hello, everybody. Welcome here to hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show on a Thursday, August 21. Great to have you with us this morning. Thank you for joining us. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Sort of a sleepy place these days. President's out of town. Congress is out of town. The lobbyists are out of town. But a few of us chickens still here, keeping our eye on what's going on here in Washington. Not much, but around the country and around the world, a lot to talk about for sure. We'll tell you what's going on. You tell us what it means to you, whether you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide or worldwide, watching us on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawkr, TAWKR-TV. Our team assembled here this morning do a good job, as always. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, happy Thursday.
Yeah, how about it? Alicia Cruz there. She's here to take your calls. You remember, you can join the conversation anytime at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And on the video stream, we're there thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Bolding, from Bowie, Maryland. Yes, indeed. Just up the road. And also joining us from Bowie this morning, and pleased to see him in studio. He's joined us before by phone. Contributing writer for The Root, Charles Ellison. Hello, Charles. Nice to see you.
Bill, what's good? Thanks for having me.
You also wear that hat for the Philadelphia Tribune?
Yes, I do. It's my hometown, actually.
Oh, nice.
Oh, really? Proudly so, yes.
Very nice.
Pardon me. I know something.
It's all right. It's
it's those morning martinis, man. You got to knock those out. Yesterday we had tea in here. We had the guy from Honest Tea in here yesterday. That was really sort of an intervention. You need to drink tea and not gin. We're trying to tell you something. We're trying to help your voice.
But it feels so good.
All right. Now, Charles, does so well in the morning.
Right. Have you taken the Ice Bucket Challenge yet?
I have not taken the Ice Bucket Challenge yet, but I want to. I was actually watching that. A couple of friends. We're daring each other right now. So,
is that right?
Yeah, we're daring each other.
Okay, so you're into it. So it looks like you're going to be there. Well, yesterday, a lot of famous people, particularly a lot in the sports world. LeBron James, the whole teams that have done this. Yesterday, the most prominent politician so far took the Ice Bucket Challenge. Former President George W. Bush up in Kennebunkport, Maine.
That's all right.
I've been challenged by several Americans to bring awareness to the ALS campaign. Woody Johnson, our daughter Jenna Bush Hager, Coach Jim Harbaugh, and recently Rory McIlroy. To you all who've challenged me, I do not think it's presidential for me to be splashed with ice water, so I'm simply going to write you a check.
Uh-oh, watch out. Oh, here's Laura.
That check is for me. I don't want to ruin my hairstyle.
Now it's my privilege to challenge my friend Bill Clinton to the ALS challenge. Yesterday was Bill's birthday, and my gift to Bill is a bucket of cold water.
Right. Everybody challenges everybody else.
Right.
It would have been fun if he had turned around and dumped a bucket of ice water on her.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what we really want to see. Yeah,
everybody gets involved.
I want to see like
here's
Laura
so much
Bush.
for your hairstyle.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But in the last 23 days, I think it's a little hokey myself just to do all these videos. But the idea is it's working to raise money for this ALS society, which is hugely important because it's such a wretched disease.
The last figure I heard was like 14 million. Am I correct?
31.5
31.5. Okay, so I'm behind already.
In the last 23 days, $31.5 million.
Wow. Okay.
For this effort to find a cure for ALS. So if it's putting, if it's putting that kind of money out there, people are responding that way. So douse yourself with ice water if you want to. But most importantly, send a check to the ALS Society. That's the thing to do. Charles Ellison here with us first half, and then we'll be talking with Joel Anderson, out in Ferguson just a little bit later. We'll get right to it. But first, Peter always starts with the big headlines.
Yes, indeed. Huge headlines. Just a couple of other stories making news. Leonard Maltin is ending his yearly movie guide after it's been in print for 45 years.
Wow.
America's top movie critic.
What are we going to do with this?
Puts out a book every single year, and he updates it with all of his reviews. Several thousand reviews. In fact, 16,000 movies have been reviewed within the pages of his movie guides. He says that the one he's putting out for 2015 will be his last. He says he's having a hard time monetizing it, and with the internet now and sites like IMDb, people can just go online and find out everything they need to know about their movies without buying a book.
Right. Huh. So
I own a copy. I'm a big fan of the Leonard Maltin movie guide. I'm bummed to see it go, but at the same time, you know, I'll be able to get the information.
Sign of the times.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Durant, basketball's current MVP, may have a new sneaker deal. He was due to take a look at either Nike or Under Armour. They made a play and offered him between $265 million and $285 million.
We're in the wrong business, Charles.
That's a lot of cheddar right there.
That's a lot of cheddar for 10 years. 10 years is what they're saying. Now, he's been with Nike for a long time, and so Nike has a chance to counteroffer. This is sort of new territory for Under Armour. The only really other visible NBA player that they have is Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors. So we'll see if he takes it. By the way, not only did Under Armour offer
I'll do it for half price.
Really? Well, what a deal. They also offered They also offered him stock in the company and to build a community center in his mother's
I got to
name.
use my Kevin Durant speed dial right now.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, call me, buddy.
Let's get up real quick. All right, man. Please.
And in Montreal, a new restaurant is opening called Bar Brutus. Bar Brutus. What sets this apart from any other restaurant? They are an all-bacon restaurant. Every dish has bacon. For example, they have bacon sushi. That is cooked bacon wrapped around chicken confit, dates, and celery, topped with soy mayo, maple syrup, and Dijon. They have bacon donuts. They have a hot pig, which is like a hot dog, except they use all bacon to make the actual sausage. Have no fear, though. They do have a salad.
With bacon bits.
Well, no. The salad is actually like 10 pieces of bacon on a plate with a single lettuce leaf on top. So, you know, if you're eating a little more delicately, you could get that.
So, that's tapping into my inner Philly right now. I'm like watering at the mouth. I'm there for it.
I would totally eat at this point.
You watched.
Not often, but I would eat that.
All right, we got 14 minutes after the hour. I mentioned at the very top of the show last night, a relatively mild night in Ferguson, Missouri. Here is Captain Ron Johnson, who's emerged as the voice of sanity, I think, in Ferguson, Missouri, commenting on events overnight.
There were no Molotov cocktails tonight, no fires, no shootings. We did not seize a single handgun. There were no confrontations.
Charles, you've been writing about this. Were you surprised, first of all, that something like the shooting, something not like, but that surprised that this unarmed black teenager was shot in Ferguson, Missouri? And were you surprised at the response?
You know, I wasn't so much surprised by the shooting because there's been sort of a long string of tragic events that have been happening. It's been a really hot summer. So, you know, you've got Michael Brown there in Ferguson, Missouri, but also you had days before him, you had John Crawford in Ohio, Beaver Creek, Ohio, who was shot by police after they responded to him being in the Walmart with a toy gun. And they shot him dead. We got another, his name has escaped me at the moment, another young brother, young black man who was in Los Angeles. So those are just kind of like three high-profile or semi-high-profile cases. But this has been an ongoing thing, and there's been a big conversation that's been happening, and it all kind of came to a head with this event in Ferguson. It's been going on for some time about police brutality and also about the rise of SWAT police tactics as well. You know, it's been kind of an ignored conversation, but SWAT police tactics have been on rise, particularly since 9/11. And, you know, people have been watching this, like, for example, the guy from Cato Institute, now he's over at Washington Post, Radley Balco. He's been doing a very spectacular job in terms of documenting what's been happening with the rise of of military tools being utilized by police and just sort of responding to what were once routine calls. Now they're responding with huge military force, all geared up as though they're in Iraq or Afghanistan. So you're not surprised because of that trend. You're also not surprised because of the poverty, because of the socioeconomic and political situation that's in Ferguson as well. And not just in Ferguson, but in St. Louis County and in the St. Louis metropolitan area as a whole. And you also look at the state of Missouri as well. And the politics there, the political dynamics. First, you're looking at the fact that Ferguson is 67% black, but has a white mayor. Has a city council that's, for the most part, it's 6 city council members, only one recently elected black city council member. The county council only has 1 black county council member. The lone St. Louis County executive, African-American by the name of Charlie Dooley, he was just ousted in the Democratic primary that happened days before Mychal Brown's death. So, but and that's kind of like the transition that the story is starting to take, and I think that that's a good thing. Where now folks are focused on, well, who's politically empowered here, and has this been designed for so long where people, the majority of people who are living in Ferguson have been basically living in a situation where they feel disenfranchised and disempowered
and targeted
and targeted at the same time. Because so then that leads to the police force being mostly all white, with the exception of 3 black police officers and a white police chief.
This is something that white people in America just cannot fathom. They cannot understand this, and I think we're starting to sort of get a little peek inside what it's like to be in a society or in a community where you are so poorly represented, like in Ferguson. And I think it's a real wake-up call to a lot of people.
Do you think the politics there will change maybe because of this?
I hope so, and I've been arguing about that, actually. I wrote a piece in The Root earlier this week, about that exact question, and actually been sparring with folks over that piece and even before then on Twitter and just talking to elected officials, local and state elected officials, not just down there in Missouri but elsewhere. And they're like, well, we need to protest. We need some sort of immediate relief now. We need to let the authorities here know, law enforcement. We need to let Ferguson, Missouri, Governor Jay Nixon, all those folks know that we're angry, that we're upset, that we're frustrated. We want some change now. But, you're really, sort of long-term substantive change comes when you overhaul the political dynamic there in Ferguson and St. Louis County and elsewhere. That's when you're going to kind of really change things. For example, I was talking to State Representative Clem Smith, 85th District there in Missouri. That's actually the district where Mychal Brown was residing and where he went to high school. And Clem Smith was talking about when he got a call from a white Republican state senator in Missouri who reached out to him and said, hey, Clem, I would love to partner with you on a bill to kind of change police training strategies and to try to implement more diversity training. He says, that's all fine and dandy, but how about we craft a bill to find 5,000 jobs for people here in Ferguson, Missouri? He said that's what you really need. So you have sort of this confluence of really bad factors which all kind of converged on one another, from the law enforcement targeting to the fact that the political structure there, infrastructure there in Ferguson doesn't represent the majority of people there. So we're hoping that it gets to that point, but it's also kind of incumbent on, or it's the responsibility of the people there, the residents of Ferguson, because in the last municipal election in Ferguson, the black voter turnout was about 7%. The white voter turnout was about 17%. So people aren't really paying attention.
Yeah, and if they feel underrepresented, they're not going to be inclined maybe to go out and vote either, right? It's
that, and in the municipal elections, you know what, Bill? The city elections take place in April. So, so people, they think, well, November is the time when you normally go out and vote. So one, you already have people not paying attention because it's an off season. So the last municipal elections were in 2000. Well, no, it was early this year, 2013. And it was an off year.
Yeah.
So people, it's not a presidential election. Barack Obama's not on the ticket or whatever. They're not paying attention.
Yeah, not surprising that that's all. 2 investigations underway, and Attorney General Eric Holder was on the scene yesterday, and the grand jury convened for the first time. What can we expect next on the legal front? Charles Ellison is here with us from The Root, theroot.com. We'll be right back Your comments and your questions always welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When do you crave refreshing iced tea?
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, we'll jump out to Ferguson, Missouri, and talk to Joel Anderson, Buzzfeed reporter on the ground, in the next segment. Right here, visiting with Charles Ellison from The Root about Ferguson and his writings on it. So, why is it taking so long to... The grand jury met yesterday. Mm-hmm. Why is it taking so long to see any action taken or any investigation or any charges filed against Officer Darren Wilson. And will there be?
Yeah, and that's we just had that political conversation.
Right.
And now there's this legal conversation. And that process is going to take a long while. And, even with the Attorney General visiting Ferguson, he's down there on the ground. That's more symbolic, because the Fed's civil rights investigation is going to take a while.
Right.
The investigation, the grand jury investigation, that's going to take a while as well. And it's going to take a while because of, one, just the normal kind of pro forma process that takes place when you're investigating something, this explosive, this tragic, something that, where there's all sorts of witnesses who saw it took place. There's a lot of evidence that they've got to go over. And I'm not a legal expert, but I know that the process is just going to take a while for that. But then there are also sort of behind the scenes political dynamics with respect to that. There's a lot of controversy regarding the district attorney, the county prosecutor,
whether or not he can really be objective in this case.
Right. A lot of folks are saying, they're questioning his objectivity, because of his father at one time was a St. Louis police officer or a county police officer. He was shot by a black man, shot and killed by a black man years ago. It's probably one of the reasons why he's a prosecutor today. He's arguing, well, I feel the Brown family's pain, so I'm in a great position here to empathize with them and to try to prosecute this thing fully. But then you find out he's kind of comes from a law enforcement family. I think he has an uncle who also served with St. Louis County Police. So it's like, how can you expect that kind of objectivity when you look at the prosecutors, the DA's biography?
Right.
You look at the politics there, as we just talked about in St. Louis County. You look at how the police there, the law enforcement community there is very tight-knit. It's very influential. That's another discussion now taking place about how influential law enforcement agencies or law enforcement communities are, not just in places like Ferguson or St. Louis County, but everywhere. When polls run, when candidates are looking to run, especially on the state and local level, what's the first place they go to look for endorsements? This is the local fraternal order of police.
Yeah.
It's the police union. So, all of that kind of factors into that. And so a lot of people aren't really expecting any kind of resolution there.
So it's going to take time.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think there'll be any peace in Ferguson until charges are filed.
That's what protesters, advocates are saying there on the ground. And when you've got folks down there like Malik Shabazz, Black Panthers, and others. I mean, you also have the NAACP and others down there. It's going to take a while.
Got to leave it right there. Charles, thanks so much for your good work, and thanks for coming in this morning.
Pete, thanks for
having me.
See you again. Yeah,
right.
definitely. We'll do that.
Is the Bill Press.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Make it 33 minutes after the hour on a Thursday, August 21. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, brought to you today by AFSCME. You know, the good men and women of AFSCME under President Lee Saunders, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. For more information, find out more about what the good men and women of AFSCME are up to at their website, afscme.org, AFSCME.org, making America happen. Yesterday, a lot going on in Ferguson, Missouri. The Attorney General on the scene. The grand jury convened for the first time, and more protests last night on the ground in Ferguson, Missouri for the last few days. From Buzzfeed, reporter, normally sports writer, Joel Anderson, joining us on our news line this morning from Ferguson. Hello, Joel. How's it going?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing this morning?
You getting any sleep out there?
No. But I'm short to the point. I'm slowly piecing it together so I get one full night of sleep over a couple of days.
You've been out there you were out there early on, man. So I can only imagine how long or how rough it's been for you out there.
So well, the days run together. When I say this, I really don't know what today is. Today is Thursday, right?
It is Thursday.
Okay.
All day long.
All right. So where do we start? Let's talk about events last night. It seemed that things were a little calmer last night. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much the most peaceful night of protest that we've had since I've been here, and probably since this whole thing started. You know, Captain Ron Johnson, who's in charge of the police force out here, you know, said that it was a pretty orderly, peaceful protest. There were 6 arrests, which is the fewest that have been here since, the very early days of the protest, the things kicked off here. And now some of that, it could be because of, first, early in the day, we had a summer advisory in terms of heat. So it was up near, 97, 99 degrees during the day. And then at night, we had a pretty big storm kick through around 9 o'clock. So, a lot of things were working against having the same intensity, the same amount of people as we've had in previous days. But for whatever the reason, it added up to one of the quietest nights we've had out here.
Talk to us. Tell us about access to the protests, because we talked to some reporters who were out there. Early on, at least, it was impossible to get close, and access was very restricted. Has that situation improved?
That has improved. It's changed a little bit. Whereas previously there was only one way to drive it down the main thoroughfare through Ferguson, which is called West Florissant Avenue. But they started opening up some of the other roads that allow you there, and it's just there's some places that you can't turn. There's still some checkpoints, but they certainly have loosened up the restrictions onto getting to the street now.
Mm-hmm. And the visit of Eric Holder yesterday make any difference? Have any impact at all?
I don't think so at all, and I don't think that the protesters that are there are really concerned so much about Eric Holder's visit. Now, maybe I can't speak for the people that didn't show up. Maybe that meant something to them, but I don't think anybody is really concerned about Eric Holder out there. They're more concerned about more immediately if there's going to be an indictment in this case.
Right. Joel Anderson joining us from Buzzfeed again. You can follow his good work from the beginning here in Ferguson, Missouri on BuzzFeed.com, or more importantly on Joel's Twitter feed, which is at Black Ink 12, at Black Ink 12, where he's shooting black ink out there nonstop,
and all kinds of great photos and stuff that really paint a picture of what's going on out there.
Right. So you mentioned about people looking for something to happen in the short term in terms of charges brought against Officer Darren Wilson, and the grand jury convening yesterday. What's the likelihood that we're going to see anything soon?
I don't. From what I understand, it'll probably be a couple of months until we see anything happen in this case.
Whoa.
And so, that makes it pretty interesting, right? Because we have either people are going to show up every day, smaller groups until there's an indictment, or more likely, people are just going to eventually lose a little steam and just hold on and see what's going to happen then. I know that, a lot of the people that are not showing up now, when they were out there earlier, they were very adamant that they wanted to see, first-degree murder charges against Officer Wilson. So, I don't think we've seen the last of these big days of protest, but for the immediate future, I think that, what we saw last night might be what we see over the next few days.
There have been several stories in the last couple of days, Joel, about the prosecutor who's in charge of this case from St. Louis County and questioning, given his background, whether or not he can be counted on to be objective in this case. What do you hear?
That's certainly something that people here are concerned about. It's Bob McCullough, and his father was killed by a black assailant in the 60s, and it's something that he ran, his run on in the past, when he was ascending into this office. He's supposedly got pretty cozy relationships with local law enforcement, and so a lot of people are just sort of skeptical as to whether or not he can be impartial or that he could be an effective advocate for a victim of a crime perpetrated by police. And obviously the people here have just grown really cynical about the local politicians and local law enforcement. They just don't think it's possible for him or anybody else really in this area to seriously go after Officer Darren Wilson. So they're really pushing for somebody else to come in, whether it's Governor Nixon to appoint somebody else or for him to step down. But they'd like to see some movement on that front.
By the way, is the National Guard still on the scene?
Yeah, but they're not. They're not omnipresent or anything. Like there's a staging area that's about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile away from where a lot of the action is, and essentially what it is a big Target parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see armored cars, a lot of things over there, and so that's where a lot of things are getting coordinated at. So they're not, people don't really get a chance to see them on the streets on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, right. But those, I was just going to ask whether all the armored vehicles that we saw in the streets early on, is that still a nightly presence, or have they pulled them back?
They're much less visible than they were previously. But no, every night you'll see at least a couple, around different points of the street, positioned there. I mean, they're not. The first few nights, I mean, they were just driving them right down the middle of the street. I mean, it was a real big show of force. But as of late, the cops have stood down a lot over the last couple nights.
Are there more? Sometimes you get the impression that there may be more reporters on the scene than protesters.
Well, I mean, I think that definitely was true yesterday, and it's something that I noted early in the day. I was like, there's not as many protesters here, but I think, the media, for whatever reason, has doubled at the early part of this week. I think there was an expectation that these protests might go on longer. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, even Buzzfeed, who I work for, I mean, I was the only person here up until a couple days ago, and then we sent in reinforcements. And I mean, I think the thought was that this is obviously a really important story, and there's going to be a lot of things happening. And so we need to, beef up our coverage. And, obviously, anything can happen. I don't want to, because there's been a lot of twists and turns since I've been here, and I don't want to make any predictions that, the protests are over. But certainly it seems like, yesterday might be a turning point in that.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's time to pull back yet, though. I wouldn't pull everybody out of Ferguson yet.
Yeah. No, last night seemed to be, just judging from the coverage and stuff that you've been writing, the first really optimistic sign of things cooling down a little bit.
And there, Joel, even on the ground out there, you realize that there's been a good deal of criticism on the media coverage of the events in Ferguson. Some journalists arguing that those on the ground in Ferguson and West Powell has come under criticism for an anti-law enforcement bias, if you will, not just reporting what's going on, but talking about the police action being oppressive or too aggressive or over the top. What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, I guess it is something. I mean, if you're really interested in being fair and being objective, I mean, yeah, it is possible that a lot of the coverage has been sort of slanted towards, the Brown family and the victims and the protesters. But I mean, one of the things is that, law enforcement has not been particularly responsive since we've been here. So any calls that we make, trying to get information, it's just not, consistent flows of information here. And so, we may not be as inclined to get their version of the story out because there's just not a way to get it out. Mm-hmm. The only person speaking, or that's, sort of authorized to speak at this point is one person, that's Captain Ron Johnson. And he's speaking all the time, I mean, in all fairness. But I mean, there's so many parts of what they're doing in terms of tactically, or even, other things behind the scenes that we just don't know and that they're not going to tell us. And so that's a part of it. And in terms of the show of force, access to people, access to the street, lots of things have been restricted, things that are not common. Making the media leave, when everybody else leaves, in terms of the curfew a couple of nights. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, media, rightfully so, is raising questions about, hey, you guys are supposed to be responsive to the public. I mean, it's not even just the media. I mean, you're supposed to, they're supposed to be open and transparent as much as they can, and I don't think that they've even, tried to do that.
Right. And not to mention, some reporters have been harassed, and a couple of them even arrested and detained. All right, Joel, we will let you go and into another day. It's Thursday, Joel, by the way. Just want you to make sure you understand.
Thanks for reminding me. I wouldn't have remembered otherwise.
All right. And thank you for getting up early for us, for your time this morning.
Good stuff.
Joel Anderson. On the ground from the beginning in Ferguson, Missouri, from Buzzfeed. And don't forget, his Twitter feed is @BlackInk12. @BlackInk12.
Must follow.
Yes, must follow.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
11 minutes now before the top of the hour, Thursday, August 21. Of course, the other dominant story is worldwide reaction to the execution by beheading of American photojournalist James Foley by the ISIS organization, the ISIS terrorist group. A couple of days ago, President Obama interrupting his vacation in Martha's Vineyard to make a very, very strong condemnation of that yesterday morning.
Today, the entire world is appalled by the brutal murder of Jim Foley by the terrorist group ISIL.
And the president rejected any suggestion on the part of ISIS that they are a religious organization that is really moved by their faith, Islam, to take the actions that they have taken.
No faith teaches people to massacre innocents. No just God would stand for what they did yesterday and what they do every single day.
And the president rejected any demands on the part of ISIS that we cease the bombing of sites, the ISIS military sites in northern Iraq or in the Kurdish area, or if we do not do so, they will take the same measures toward other American prisoners. The president saying we will not be deterred from our mission.
The United States of America will continue to do what we must do to protect our people. We will be vigilant and we will be relentless. When people harm Americans anywhere, we do what's necessary to see that justice is done, and we act against ISIL, standing alongside others.
And then, subsequent to the president's statement yesterday, we found out two very important pieces of information about the situation there in northern Iraq. One is that the United States actually made an attempt to free James Foley and other American hostages. Early this summer, President Obama gave approval for a Delta Force rescue mission. They went into Syria, actually, where a refinery in Syria, where it was, our intelligence showed that these hostages were being held. The Delta Force successfully went in, fought their way to inside of this refinery. When they got there, sadly, they discovered no hostages were at the site. They had already been moved by their ISIS captors. But there was that rescue attempt. And then we were also informed by the Pentagon yesterday and the White House that ISIS had demanded ransom from the United States for basically a price on the head of James Foley. If we did not pay it, they said they would execute him. They were demanding, we have since learned, $100 million. The president said, no way, we will not pay ransom to terrorists, even though American lives are on the line, because if we pay, and I think he was absolutely right, if we pay them to free one American, then they'll just grab 2 or 3 other Americans and demand the same ransom. And in fact, they've already said the same $100 price tag is on the head of Steve Sutloff, who's a journalist for Time magazine, and another American being held hostage there. By the way, the United States and the United Kingdom are the 2 countries that have refused to pay ransom. Other countries have bowed to the terrorist demands, and I think they're going to pay the consequences.
I mean, why would you pay them? Why in the world would you pay them? And it's obviously not an easy choice that you make. It's not something that you should stand hard and fast on. We never, ever, ever negotiate with terrorists. But if you've got someone who is preying on journalists, and you have this situation where they give you an out for $100, they're not going to stop. Or for $100 million, they're not going to stop. They'll keep going. They'll keep going.
No, it's just like saying we're going to give foreign aid to every terrorist organization on the planet, or else. Yeah. Right. No, that's it. Once we start down that road, no coming back. Parting shot coming up on the racial tension and why in Ferguson, Missouri. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, the more you look at the situation in Ferguson, Missouri, the more you realize we should not maybe have been surprised at what happened. Racial tensions in that community have been high for years, and blacks, especially young black males, have long felt targeted with good reason. Consider this. Population of Ferguson, about 22,000 people, 68% black, but the mayor is white, 5 out of 6 city councilors are white, 6 out of 7 members of the school board are white, the police chief is white, and out of 50 members of the police force, only 3 officers, or 6% are black. And a report from the Missouri Attorney General's office shows that in 2013, Ferguson police pulled over 4,632 black drivers, but only 686 white drivers. Even accounting for the disparity in population, that means that black drivers are 37% more likely to be stopped and twice as likely to be searched and arrested. In a community like that, no wonder an unarmed black teenager was shot for jaywalking. Only surprise is it didn't happen sooner. Hey, folks, that's the show for today on Thursday. Have a great day. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.